What's up?
Welcome to the November Antonelli's Cheese Club.
So excited. Look at these beauties. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, I'm pretty stoked about this one in particular. Of course, you know, at Antonelli's Cheese Shop, we sell an array of amazing cheeses from all over the world. But today in specific, we're talking about French cheeses. And boy, howdy, do we have a selection for y'all.
So we'll start by introducing ourselves because that would make sense. And then we'll go into the cheese. But Casie and I get so excited about cheese that oftentimes cheese comes first. I'm John.
I'm Casie.
And we've both been with the company for over, 8 years now.
Yeah.
It's been pretty fantastic,
yeah.
right? And so we've gotten to work together since 2014. And so Casey's palate is one of the finest in the state of Texas. So she's likely going to talk about most of the cheese things today. And I'm just here for background.
Moral support.
And high fives.
High fives.
So welcome to November Cheese of the Month Club, or Cheese Club.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. So today, in addition to the cheeses here, I thought we'd start out talking a little bit about AOC, right? So name protections in cheeses, which is really important, especially when we're talking about a lot of these specific cheeses here. So here in America, we have, Bob's cheese and Bob made it, and it's really good.
Yeah.
And then there's Sally's cheese, and Sally made it, and it's also really good.
And sometimes the cow's named Sally, too.
And sometimes
so
yeah. But in Europe, they have these sort of name protection systems. So, like the name of Roquefort doesn't belong to a Roquefort cheese maker. It belongs to the entire area, right? So, of course, there's these different rules and everything that they have to follow that guarantee a certain level of quality and predictability, right? And it also provides a little bit of like security and safety for the cheesemakers as well. We think about this oftentimes with products like champagne. Champagne has to be made in Champagne, France, and there's only certain grapes you can use, and if you break any of those rules, you can't call it champagne. But fun fact, that name protection system was actually developed by cheesemakers and then co-opted by winemakers, so we did it first.
Yeah, we did. And one of these cheeses was first.
It was, absolutely.
So we'll get to that, I'm sure, in a little while.
Yes.
And so those boundaries, those borders, those requirements that are put on cheesemakers are really stringent in an effort to control the quality of the product. And that now is becoming a challenge with global warming and the way that weather patterns are changing in parts of France, that cheesemakers are having to get innovative to stay within those borders, to continue to make those products taste the same and give consistency. So it's pretty amazing.
Yeah. Cool. All right, well, let's eat some cheese.
Let's do that.
Yeah?
Let's do that. France, as you know, is one of the largest producers of artisan cheese in the world, small batch, handmade, and these four are stunning.
Yes, absolutely. What's the De Gaulle quote?
Oh my God! How can you rule a country with over 300 cheeses? I think was what he said way back in the day.
Which is, extra funny because it's really something like 1,600 different kinds of cheese.
Way more than that. Way more. 1,600 in a single cheese shop.
Yeah, exactly.
So.
Yeah. All right. So first, we are going to start with Valance Ash. So this is a lovely little, truncated pyramid-shaped cheese, and of course the origin story to the shape of this cheese was that Napoleon, who was notoriously a very humble person, very humble. That's mostly what he was known for.
Yeah, they're making a movie out of
and his humility.
He's so humble.
Had just come back from what we will call an unsuccessful campaign in Egypt, and to ease his pain, a cheesemaker presented this very beautiful, perfect sort of pyramid-shaped cheese, and it angered him dearly. So he took out his knife and he cut off the top, lopped off the top, and made what we call this truncated pyramid shape. So that is the history.
Yeah, the French cheeses are not short on lore and fabrication of stories, I'm sure, but it is a beautiful thing. And so this particular one comes from sort of the central part of the country in the Loire River Valley, and it's one of the finest places to get goat's milk cheeses in the world, except of course for the Hill Country, where we have amazing producers ourselves. But this part of the world produces some of the finest, 5 of the name-controlled goat's milk cheeses in France. This is not one of those. This is a sister to it. You want to talk about the cheese?
Yeah. So, so this is Valance Ash. This is going to be a really sort of light, kind of lactic, bright, almost like homemade fudge sort of texture cheese to it. It's really just going to like sink into your teeth when you bite into it. Lots of beautiful moisture. So definitely, you know, when you're kind of prioritizing your cheese box, you want to make sure you finish this one first because it is gonna, it's gonna spoil the fastest. You know, so it's a beautiful little treat. We're not saving it for the Queen of England to come over. We're gonna eat it tonight, right?
Yes.
So it is made with Alpine and Saining goat milk blended together. Alpine goats have the cute little pointy ears, and they're probably actively destroying your car right now.
Yeah.
Sorry, you know.
They eat everything.
Yeah, that is just the personality of an Alpine goat. But they produce a lovely, lush, high volume milk to create these beautiful sort of high butter fat cheeses here. It's been dusted in ash, so that's what that sort of darkness on the outside there, and that's just sort of like a natural way to protect the cheese. Ash is basically carbon, so it's basic on a chemical level, and so it's kind of creating an environment where like other sort of, you know, uninvited friends don't want to hang out, basically.
And we got a chance this summer to visit Pijaquin, which is the producer, and their headquarters is just outside of Celles-sur-Cher, which is one of the other name-controlled regions of goat milk production in France, just near Valence. And what the first interaction I had with them is they had, in the town of Celles-sur-Cher with about 800 people, they had a cheese vending machine. And it was the happiest sight of my life. It was awesome. But getting to go and visit with the current CEO in the past, it's a multi-generational business that has grown up together. But they specialize in the soft ripened, geotrichum rinded cheeses. They also do these fresher cheeses that they can ship further across the country, across the world, across the globe. And so it's an amazing producer to support. If you see it in your local grocery, go grab a bite and taste it. But this Valance Ash is a spectacular example of what they can make in this region of France.
Yeah.
And it's paired with, I think, blueberry Pinot. So if you did get the deluxe box, today you're going to have the 4 pairings. And the blueberry Pinot, well, you just tasted it.
It's phenomenal, right? So you've got that beautiful lactic, tangy, bright flavor of this sort of fresher style goat cheese. It's got that minerality, that sort of kind of yogurty flavor. And then when you have that beautiful, deep, dark fruit and the sweetness of the jam, it really kind of mitigates some of the brightness of the cheese and balances everything out. And it's just a lovely, I mean, like, I would eat this for breakfast every day of the rest of my life.
If you haven't already started eating, you might have just gotten some water, like saliva in your mouth, just from Casie's description. I got this rush of, it's mouth watering is what it is. So thank you for that.
Yeah, yeah.
All right, cheese number 2.
Cheese number 2. All right, so this is our little wash rind baby in your box. And if by chance, when you opened up your cheese box, if you were suddenly aware of the aromatics of cheese, this was it. This was
a slight notice, perhaps. This is why we put the disclaimer on the box, of the shipping box. Mm-hmm. Odor is normal and awesome.
Yeah, yeah. So this is a chevauchon. Which is very similar to a type of cheese called reblochon, which looks like a little pancake. It's washed rind. It also has a little bit of that Penicillium camemberti, so it's both kind of a bloomy rind and a washed rind at the same time, which is going to create that beautiful sort of oopy, goopy, goozy texture there.
Wonderful. Which
just makes my little heart go pitter-pat, right? So this guy, you're going to get some deep savory notes to it. And it's just so creamy and like palate coating. Honestly, we've got a lot of different pairings that we put in the box. I think it would really go with any of them. If you are a wine person, like I am a wine person, oftentimes when we think of these savory flavors, we tend to think of like red wines. Personally, with a washed rind, I love something like this Viognier, right? So this is going to be a fuller-bodied white wine that's going to have some really nice sort of like deep stone fruit flavors, so apricot and peaches. It almost reminds me of like the Goya peach puree, and that is really going to balance out that savory sort of umami experience that you have with this, and it's really just, it's that like ratatouille effect where just like everything just kind of explodes.
So good. So good. And sometimes if you drink the wine before the cheese or have the cheese first, you're going to get two very different experiences. So play with it. It's a ton of fun. And this style of cheese, like that you mentioned, the Reblochon, technically is illegal to bring into the country, which is why we can't showcase it here, because it's aged less than 60 days and it's raw milk. But this little gooey beauty has got a similar flavor, a similar aroma. So you get the experience. And when you travel through the Savoie in the south eastern part of France, you see this style of cheese basically in everything.
Yeah.
On every dish, every sandwich, everything is this style. So play with it. If you have some left over, melt it over potatoes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean,
treat it over ice cream. I don't know. You do anything you want with it.
Yeah, you treat it like a like a raclette or like a camembert. Pop it in the oven with a little shaved garlic cloves and a drizzle of honey, and then maybe once it's all oopy goopy, some red peppercorns or something. I don't know. Just throwing some ideas out there. But yeah, it's a nice sort of savory, hearty bite that is just so decadent and.
And I think to that end, if it's too strong for your palate, cook with it.
Yeah. And
those other flavor profiles will balance it, and that's really spectacular. And we put it on a mini toast here just because, well, it's super goopy, and this is how you control it.
the mini toast is the edible vehicle that brings the cheese to your face. Yeah.
All right, cheese number 3, one of my first loves.
Yeah, Compte.
Compte.
Yeah, so this is going to be a firm cheese. And this is one of the best melting cheeses in the world, right? So this is the staple of every chef's kitchen. This is the cheese that's served on top of French onion soup, right? It's of course delectable just on its own, room temperature on a plate with a cornichon. I have not been to Compte, but I have been to kind of its sister city, Gruyere, which, once upon a time, Gruyere and Compte were the same cheese because it's kind of the same community dealing with the same environmental factors and the snow and the tippy top of the Alps there that developed these recipes. And then, several hundred years later, a politician drew a line on a map and said, you're now Switzerland and you're now France. And so Switzerland said, okay, well, but our town is called Gruyere, so we get to keep the name. So you got to change the name. So now Compte is the name of that cheese now. Compte has been identified as being one of the most complex flavored cheeses in the world. So there are more flavor molecules identified in Compte than any other cheese, and that is because of the biodiversity of the pastures where these cows are grazing, right? So we're up in the tippy...
You get extra points if you can identify over 100 of them.
Yeah. I'm at 17.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, so all the herbs and the grasses and the flowers and everything that are in these pastures, these pristine pastures at the tippy top of the mountains there, are all impacting the flavor of the milk that's then, concentrated into the cheese. So just like that scene from Napoleon Dynamite where he's at the 4-H club meeting and he's judging the milks and this one's fine, cow got into the onion patch. Legit, if your cow eats onions, the milk will taste like onions, which, of course might be great for a cheese, less great for Fruit Loops.
Yes.
Right?
That would be awkward.
Yeah, that would be
A new invention,
yeah.
I think. Well, and this is one of the first cheeses that made me fall in love with cheese. I remember my first bite of Compte was in 2008 in February. Very specific, I know. But when I first had it and heard the story behind it, how the fruitières are all dotted along the mountainsides, and these cheesemakers over generations would take the cows of the village up to these little huts where they would make the cheese and then bring them down. Just the coolest stories, the coolest, and the flavor. And this is a selection from Marcel Petit, which is Affineur, who goes around the countryside, the Jura Mountains, and buys young wheels of cheese and ages them. And then our partner selects for our market and selects wheels that would work well for us. And we paired it here with cornichons, which are a classic little gherkin style pickle from France. You see them all, you see this way more than you see Clausen or Vlasic when you're traveling France. And I dig these little pickles.
So cornichon is my favorite way to eat distilled white vinegar.
That sounds perfect.
Yeah.
That's it. If you need to have it, you can add more distilled white vinegar into your diet. This is the way to do it. So.
They're just so acidic and bright and crunchy and salty. And they're generally cured with little onions and mustard seed, and that's really going to enhance the sort of grassy flavors, the meaty flavors of this cheese. You know, and then also because it is so savory and acidic, I then get more of those sort of like hazelnut and white chocolate flavors in Compte when I have it with something that's so juxtaposed in flavor like a Cornichon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. And the one of the last cool things is that the Affineur, basically they take over, some of them take over old forts that are now just not being used for anything, and they age like up to 60,000 wheels of Compte. And Compte is an 80-pound wheel of cheese, so we're talking about like 3.5 foot diameter wheel that's about 4 inches tall. It's heavy, and I can't lift it by myself.
Yeah.
It's too bad.
And
I better work out.
last little note, you know, I know some people are tempted to cut off the rind.
Oh yeah.
But on Compte, never skimp on the rind, right? The Compte rind is one of my favorite. The rind is one of my favorite parts. It tastes to me a lot like the little like French fried onions that go on top of green bean casserole. So don't you know?
You don't just cut it off and throw it out. Taste it.
Yeah.
It provides a really beautiful depth of flavor. Sometimes like everything bagel, like that onion flavor. And I'm holding up this wine here because oftentimes rinds like this really elevate a grape and the fruitiness in a wine. It brings kind of the soil out. The really hard work of the vintner, it helps elevate those really deep, authentic roots. So this blend here would go fantastic with the Compte itself and then also the rind.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, are we ready for the
grand finale?
Grand
Here we
finale.
go. It looks too beautiful. We gotta eat it.
Yeah, so of course, you know, with all of our guided tastings here at Antonelli's, we start with the fresher style cheeses and we build up to the bigger flavors. Because if we started with blue cheese, literally everything we taste after that would just taste like blue cheese. So out of fairness to everything else on the plate, we're gonna finish with blue. But you know, you're all adults here, so choose your own adventure. If you want to start with blue, good for you. So we, of course, could not do a French box and not include Roquefort.
That's right.
Yeah. So this is the king of blue cheeses. This is, it's not, so, you know, French cheese marketing is like divine, right? They are so great. They like to tell us that Roquefort was the very first blue cheese. That's not actually correct. And what's extra funny about that is that there's like historical documents talking about other French blue cheeses that are older than Roquefort. So like they already have other blue cheeses they can talk about, but they, you know, but Roquefort, you know. But I will give them this. I will give them the mother of blue cheese, right? Because the mold, the blue mold that's used in most blue cheese production now these days is Penicillium roqueforti, which was you know, kind of harvested in the caves at Roquefort, France, right? So this beautiful little microcosm with all of just the most perfect elements that this one particular strain of Penicillium, not penicillin, Penicillium, was able to sort of evolve and flourish, right? So once upon a time, the way that blue cheese was inoculated was they would take loaves of rye bread and they would stick them in the caves at Roquefort, France, and wait for the loaves to get all kind of like fuzzy and blue, and they'd clap them together over the vat of milk, and those like, you know, fuzzy breadcrumbs would go into the vat, and that's how we got the mold into the vat. Now everything is grown in a lab, so we know exactly what it is, and it's very safe, and that's wonderful. But it is still the same strain of blue cheese or blue mold that originated in the caves of Roquefort, France. There, so
yeah. And then what makes a cheese like this special? So the landscape is spectacular. You're driving through this really sort of rocky, mountainous landscape, and you come into this tiny town that doesn't look like it should survive on this kind of face of this mountain, and there's buildings everywhere, and there's only 7 producers that can produce this cheese, even though there's brands around the world, that multiple different types of brands. But you go into their cute little storefront. This is Gabrielle Coulet. It's tasting fantastic. And you go into their storefront, and they're like, hey, why don't we take you into the caves? And we're like, okay, where are we going to drive to? And they go to the back of the store. They opened up this door, took us down the steps, And they're like, okay, so why don't we get dressed and put on all of our stuff, and then you just keep going down and down and down and taking elevators, and these caverns are just beautiful, and these air tunnels flow all throughout the space, and that's what allows for the right temperature, the right airflow, the right humidity, which makes it perfect for this particular cheese. But I think there are so many favorite stories. I got to eat this cheese in the cave. They do some of these tours publicly. If ever you get a chance to go to the tiny area where this cheese is made,
It's like a cheese bucket list, thing.
it's spectacular.
Yeah.
And I always pictured one giant cavern and all of these producers sort of separate, like putting up fences and stuff, but that's not really how it is. It's small caves, and they're all shaped differently, but those little tunnels of airflow, you connect all the different producers essentially, and so you probably could crawl through from one to the other if you wanted to. Not that I'm going to go spelunking there, but
0 out of 10 do not recommend.
Yes.
But
but it was pretty spectacular, and so Gabrielle Coulet, it's a family, again, multi-generational family business. We got to meet the family and had lunch with them. It was amazing, and they just are really focused on high quality. They keep their cheese in the caves longer than some of the other producers. So for the AOC, there's a bare minimum, and most other producers just do that bare minimum, but they actually take it to another level. And so you get that depth of flavor. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And we paired this with an orange blossom honey. We love the single varietal honeys here at the shop, and orange blossom's a real delicate one, but the sweetness helps bring out some more of the cream that you would get in the cheese here. It offsets some of the intensity. Oftentimes when new cheese team member is starting, we recommend tasting the blue cheese with honey until one day they forget the honey and they're now addicted to blue cheese.
it's actually a slow indoctrination.
That's right.
It starts out with a little bit of blue cheese and a whole lot of honey, and then every day it's progressively more cheese, less honey.
Yeah.
But it works every
But
time.
it works. So those are our cheeses, and we hope that you absolutely love them. I know.
Yeah.
We're gonna eat all of the rest of ours.
100%.
And then don't forget about December. December Cheese of the Month. Well, Cheese Club is coming right around the corner. We'd love for you to be a part of it and have other friends join. It's a great gift to give for the holidays, and 'tis the season.
Yeah. Cheers, y'all.